Hello, one and all. This is my review of Ascendance Bookworm Part 5, Volume 4. I've got to say, this was a fascinating volume. I love that the author basically made the Justking faction into the main threat of Ehrenfest, the big bad enemy, outside the academy, the royal family, Arnsbeck, and whatever else is going on there. And it does make a lot of sense. First off, there is a huge power vacuum now that the Veronica faction has basically been removed from, every single important position in all of Ehrenfest. There's also just, the revenge aspect of it. Seriously, great-grandfather Justking literally passed away from the pure glee of the purge. He's like, oh, all my enemies are dead? Awesome, peace out. What the freak, man? Were you seriously just being kept alive out of pure absolute hatred? That is insane. That is genuinely insane. And, finally, we also can't ignore the fact that the Justking faction have always kind of been the bad guys of this series. Think back to it. Gabrielle, yeah, that was Veronica's mother's name. She came to Ehrenfest. She's like, all right, I want to be part of this duchy. And they basically kicked her to the curb, saying yeah, no, you can no longer marry the next archduke. You can no longer do this. You can no longer do that. And according to the Veronica faction, she was very heavily bullied. Now, they are clearly not an unbiased source, but I think it's safe to say that some bullying was going on there. And it's just, dudes, why? Seriously, you are ticking off a greater duchy more than you could ever possibly imagine. What was the point of this? I know Gabrielle kind of forced herself into this marriage, but still, you could have gotten so much from this connection, and yet you just didn't want it. And we see that again in this volume. They even say, if being a higher ranked duchy means that we have to have Archduke, have to have Wilfried, and marry someone from a greater duchy, we don't want that. We're fine being a bottom ranked duchy. We've always been a bottom ranked duchy, and that's perfectly okay with us. Which is just so absolutely insane and selfish and, in a weird way, power hungry, but also does make a lot of sense just because of, the generation divide here. And that's something the author herself even mentioned in the acknowledgement. The older generation, they're living in a very different world. They aren't actually benefiting from what Myne is doing, from, her mana compression. Doesn't really help those who are past their growings period. Her divine protection thing, awesome, but it's not really public knowledge right now that they can redo it in Ehrenfest, so the older generation thinks, yeah, I don't really see how that helps me, especially because actually doing that requires, a whole lot of praying, and again, old generation doesn't really have time for that. Myne's connections with Greater Duchy means that students can marry people from Greater Duchies. Again, the old generation's like, yeah, I don't really care about that. I'm already married. I'm already here. I'm not going anywhere. So just all these benefits that Myne keeps bringing to Duchy, and the old generation are like, no, we're good. We're fine being a lower ranked Duchy. We're fine just being as we always have been. Even though, Sylvester's whole thing is that he wants to do better. He wants to improve. He wants to make Ehrenfest a better place. And literally everybody is fighting him on it. Oh, I love it. So yeah, this entire volume is basically the Justking faction splitting up the Archduke family. And we even see that on the freaking cover. Seriously, this is one of the best covers I've ever seen, as it says so much about what this volume is. Every single family member is looking somewhere else, looking in a completely opposite direction, and you can read so much from their expressions. First off, we have Florentia, who is just really off in the corner out of the way because, yeah, she has basically been sidelined by her pregnancy, and she looks really freaking sad about that because she's put so much work on her children, on her husband, both in terms of donating mana, in terms of doing paperwork, in terms of all of that, at the literal worst possible time. And yeah, I seriously agreed with Charlotte's rampage. Every single one of you is wrong. Father, you refuse a second wife, and even impregnated mother on top of that. I think it was last volume when, Sylvester's sister is like, dude, take a second wife and stop knocking up your first wife. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of mean. That's kind of rude. Also, that first wife is your husband's sister, so what the freak are you going on about? But yeah, now it makes a lot more sense. Sylvester is just royally forked up here by knocking her up. And of course, Florentia royally forked up by getting knocked up. I mean, I'm assuming there's some kind of magic birth control in this world they should have been using. I mean, I guess actually have two different ideas of how this might have happened. First off, maybe it's just the thing where they're like, okay, you know what? Ferdinand's leaving in like a year. We're going to do the purge in like a year. Let's have a baby now because this is literally our last chance. And then the purge got moved up and Ferdinand's departure got moved up. So they're like, oh, no, 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 no. Or secondly, this was just Sylvester's way of mourning his grief over losing his brother. He went to Florentia and she comforted him, and that comfort led to a pregnancy. That's, I think, honestly, maybe more likely, but the issue is I don't really know exactly when that timeline for a pregnancy really is, so hard to say. Anyway, though, Sylvester looks very stoic. He's looking roughly in the same direction as his wife, but still, looking forward, still facing the future that he's trying to make better. Charlotte, oh god, Charlotte looks so sad and full of grief and guilt because, I mean, like I said, her screaming rant at her entire family and all their retainers, beautiful. I absolutely freaking loved it. Oh, that was amazing. But also, she's worried like, oh no, because I did that, Father took Brunhilde as his second wife, and this is going to mess everything up. This makes things hard for Myne. Oh my god, this ruined Brunhilde's life. She was supposed to be the next Gabe of Garlic, and now she can't because of me. And I just really loved how that was honestly more of a reflection on who Charlotte is than on who Brunhilde is. Because Charlotte's like, okay, I'm going to become the next archduke. I can do this. I am infinitely more qualified than my brother. And yet her brother still got the freaking throne, literally handed to him because of Myne. Also do love that Charlotte doesn't really blame Myne for that. I mean, she really could. It's like it's like because of Myne that everything went bad for her, but she only really blames the world itself and her gender. I really do like that about her. And really that leads to some really sweet moments between Charlotte and Brunhilde. And one of my favorite lines in this entire series, entire volume at least, only a true fool would speak ill of your decision. At which point she immediately realized, oh, that's my brother, isn't it? Yeah, seriously. At that point, Charlotte thought even more like, how? How is this man going to become the next Archduke? For God's sake, I am so much more qualified. Love that. And of course, we then have little itty-bitty Melchior in the corner who's just lost. Honestly lost. Like, you can see the expression. He's like, okay, everyone's screaming, everyone's fighting. What can I do? What can I do in this moment to help? And he does. He does that so well. He agrees to go with Myne. He actually begs to go with Myne on spring prayer, even though it means wearing her hand-me-down robes with all the flowers sewn into them. I mean, let's not forget that Hildebrand was kind of asked by the royal family to get back the magic tools, the magic Schumels, and he refused because he didn't want to be called Milady. I mean, are Melchior and Hildebrand the same age? I think they're at least close. So, yeah, this means that Melchior is actually way more qualified to be the next Zent than Hildebrand is, which... Cool. I love that. Also, can't forget, Melchior actually listened to Myne's like, oh, I'm supposed to speak with these commoners and learn from them? Awesome, let's do that! Seriously, Myne, this is how you do it. This is how you train up the next generation. Start when they're young so they don't get these preconceived notions. And speaking of preconceived notions, we also have good old grandfather Bonifacius. I've literally never known how to pronounce his name. Let's just call him Grandpa B. And Grandpa B, unlike everyone else here, is looking at the rest of them, looking at the Archduke's family, because he is quite literally a spy for the Leisgang faction. He's also being tricked by the Justking faction, but he is still their spy, making sure everything goes the way they want it, making sure that Myne is not being abused, making sure that Myne isn't being forced to go to the temple when she really doesn't want to. And in a lot of ways, he is the representation of the older generation. Even when he goes to the temple, even when he realizes, okay, this place isn't that bad. This place is actually, really, really nice. I like it here. He doesn't go that far, but he realizes it's not as bad as he thought. He still seemingly has an issue with it. He still has an issue with Myne going there, with Myne working there, with Myne doing so much work there, because that's just, part of him. That's what he's believed for the last, God, how old is this man, 60 years? He doesn't look 60, but, given how strong he is, he could honestly be 80. Which, yes, thanks to my muscles, I don't age! That would genuinely not surprise me. Anyway, though, like I said, he is the old generation, and he really does emphasize why Myne's plan needs to happen, why she needs to go to the younger generation, to those who can actually benefit from all the good she's done at the Academy, from all the connections she's made, from all the discoveries she's made, and basically win them over, basically convince them, hey, you should work with me. I've done so much for you. Yes, your parents, grandparents might hate it, but you're going to be the next Gabe. You're going to be the one running this part of the country, this part of the duchy, when you come of age. So do you really want to, keep listening to your parents forever? And it makes so much sense because that's what she's already done in the Academy. The Veronica faction, the Justking faction, they're like, I hate you, I hate you. And Myne stepped in okay, you guys are going to work together or I will make you suffer. Yay! And it was fascinating because, the kids had never really done much of anything to each other. Roderick did trick Wilfried, but that's the whole thing. But for the most part, it's I hate you because my parents told me to hate you. And Myne managed to convince them to overcome that, managed to convince them to actually work with one another, to help one another, even outside the Academy. So yeah, she really could create a faction of the younger generation who don't want to, live according to their parents' politics, their parents' factions. That's amazing. Love that. And then finally, we have good old Wilfried, who I love he's separated from the rest of the family. Because, yes, both the purge has meant that he's separated, meaning he's cut off, meaning he's, further away from everyone, but also his own anger and hatred and just feeling of misplaced, I don't even know what to call it, have resulted in him being further separated from the family, feeling like he is isolated from them. That's really cool. And he just looks so freaking mad. Oh, God above Wilfried, because, alright, this is the start of my rant, because I really want to talk about this dude right now. He goes on this whole thing about how Myne should be, doing the socializing, because that's the role of the first wife of the duchy. And, alright, first off, dude, no. Myne is a, schoolgirl. She's still in school, and both your parents are in really, really good shape. There's not going to be, a need for her to really socialize all that well, for her to really control the factions all that well for at least 10 or 20 years. She has time. Secondly, let's not forget the fact that while, okay, maybe a first wife is supposed to do all that, even a future first wife, most first wives or future first wives aren't also involved in, basically everything else in the duchy. Myne essentially runs the temple, especially now that Ferdinand is gone. Myne deals with the merchants, both, local and foreign. Myne's running the printing industry. Myne's socializing with higher-ranking duchies and nobles. Myne is doing so god-dang much, and you want to add more to her plate. Are you insane? And what really royally ticks me off here is the fact that Wilfried has actually lived Myne's life multiple times, and he was miserable every single freaking time. First off was, the whole life swap thing in part 3, where he's like, oh, you get to relax in the temple and have fun. So Myne's like, alright, go to the temple. He went there and was miserable. He couldn't even do a fraction of the work that Myne did. In fact, he was fully literate at the time, but he saw her schedule and it was freaking exhausting. Then, first year at the Royal Academy, Myne had to leave early, meaning Wilfried had to do all those tea parties. And he was miserable. and he knows Myne can't socialize, so to some degree, he should realize that she would also be miserable doing that. And then finally, I guess I mixed up the order, but whatever, spring prayer. The first time when Myne was in the coma, he went out to do spring prayer, and it was awful. It was miserable. It almost freaking killed him, especially when Ferdinand gave him the kindness-filled potion. So for you to rant like, oh, Myne's taking it easy in the temple, she doesn't take her duty seriously, dude, what the absolute freak is wrong with you? And I think, God, what's actually almost more annoying than that is the fact he's like, well, she should be working with the Lice Gang faction to help me. Whereas, he is already completely convinced that Myne is trying to become the next archduke. So what he's literally saying is, Myne should meet more with the people who are trying to make her the next archduke, so that way she can tell them not to make her the next archduke, even though she wants to become the next archduke. What is wrong with you? Like, genuinely, what the freak is wrong with you? And then, oh, Lord above, Wilfried says, I'm going to go out for spring prayer and meet with all the Lice Gang Gabes and try to win them over. And I love this. I genuinely love this. I'm like, okay, this is great. This is a really great moment for Wilfried. He knows. He must know they're not going to accept him right away. They're going to mean to him. They're going to degrade him, all this. But just going there, showing himself and being like, here, I want to become the next Archduke. How can I do this? And then, just getting, like I said, insulted, degraded, all that, and coming back like, okay, that was bad, but I learned a lot. I know what my problems are now. I can work on it, and I'll do this again next year, and next year, and next year, and eventually I will win them over. Except, nope. Wilfried was genuinely 100% convinced that he could just go there and win them over in a single day, undo all the decades of torture and pain they suffered under Veronica, which, man, how are you this freaking stupid? And again, I think it's important to mention that it wasn't even necessary to win over the Gabes. Myne went to his retainers and said, here's the plan. Win over the students because they'll become the future Gabes. They'll be the ones actually running the duchy. Don't bother with their parents. Work on their kids. And Wilfried fully ignored that advice and decided to go after the parents who truly and absolutely despised him. Oh, that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. So, yeah, really does feel like they're setting up Wilfried to be the next big bad of the series. Like, he's gonna work with Detlin and be like, oh, Myne told me how to find the magic Bible. I'm gonna make you Zent, and when I do, you're gonna make sure that I become the next Archduke of Ehrenfest, blah, blah, blah. Wilfried has already gone to Detlin multiple times and said, oh, she's nice like grandma, which, not a compliment, dude. Seriously, not a freaking compliment. But anyway, though, there's one more member of the Archduke's family who is not on the cover. Good old Brunhilde. Which just, good Lord above. I can't get over this scene. And she basically goes, hello, Lord Sylvester, Lord of Ehrenfest. I am Brunhilde. I am your daughter's retainer. He's like, yeah. You're an honor student, right? I remember you. She's like, oh, I'm so glad. Anyway, want to get married? God above, just the suddenness of that scene. I almost fell over laughing. Myne, though, had a very different reaction, having a full-blown panic attack and needing Lisa Letza to pull out the Ferdinand Schummel to tell her to do breathing exercises and calm down. I need to see it animated. Seriously, God above, I need to see that animated. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. But anyway, though, turns out Brunhilde is, in fact, the best possible second wife for Sylvester. For one thing, she's underage. Ooh. Yeah, that felt ill to say. That felt really, really ill to say. But this is actually a benefit since it means that they can't actually get married for 2 years, which is going to be past the point where Florentia needs Sylvester's mana for herself and the baby. Awesome. Great thing for that. For another, she is actually a Lice Gang princess and can control the other Lice Gangs. And perhaps most importantly, she has more experience working with top-ranked duchies than anyone else in Ehrenfest since she ran all of Myne's tea parties. So she's a great candidate. In fact, she's actually too great of a candidate. And Myne says, it would be a complete waste for you to be the second wife of Sylvester of all people. You're so much cooler and more reliable than he is. Seriously, this entire chapter is basically just Myne insulting Sylvester over and over and over again till he starts pinching her cheeks, and then she calls for Grandpa B to come in and break his hand. Love this. Absolutely love this. Seriously, how is Grandpa B not Myne's guard knight? That would be just so absolutely amazing. Love it. Oh, and I forgot another thing to complain about with Wilfried. He went to Brunhilde and asked her to cancel the engagement, which... That's not how this works! That is literally not how this works! I mean, as far as he knows, this was not a decision on her part, but rather something that Gabe and Sylvester decided upon without consulting her. I mean, even her father thinks that this was something that Sylvester decided without consulting her. So yeah, she has no control over this, and if she did object, what would happen to that? At absolute best, the marriage would be called off, but then it would seem like the Gabe doesn't actually like Sylvester and essentially slapped him in the face with such a awful insult, and it would basically destroy Garlic, one of the most important provinces in Ehrenfest. So yeah, for Wilfried, that is a dumb decision. That is a very, very dumb decision. And possibly treason? It might be treason, actually, I think about it. I was trying to remember when I was reading this. Wasn't there a scene, back in the Ivory Tower incident where Wilfried said something like, oh god, what was it? Oh yeah, he was telling Sylvester, we need to save Grandma, she's in prison. And he's like, dude, I put her in prison, and saying you want to free her is essentially treason against me, the archduke. Yeah, this feels like treason too, trying to cancel an engagement decided by the archduke. Just saying, that's weird. Very, very weird. Anyway though, speaking of engagements, we also have Clarissa, who was already my favorite character in the series, and this volume just really, really emphasized that because... oh, Lord above. Well, first off, we have the Archduke of the Duchy basically being like, okay, we've royally forked up with the whole Ferdinand situation, which is something I very much want to see. Like, seriously, if there's a short story or something of that, I need to read it as he realizes, okay, so we sent Ferdinand to Arnsbeck where he'd be safe, but it turns out that Arnsbeck, the woman he's now engaged to, is the granddaughter of the woman who abused him and who looks just like that woman, and none of us actually realized that. So... oh, what do we do now? What do we do now? And his big decision was basically mumbling like, oh god, I would do anything to help Ehrenfest right now, even, try to rush this engagement and get Clarissa over there ASAP. And Clarissa takes that as an invitation and decides just to, go with it and immediately sets off for Ehrenfest without informing literally anybody, not the Archduke, not her parents. All she does is take like one guard, maid, whatever with her, and she just bolts. And then somehow manages to get through 2 different security checkpoints without issue, which, yeah, I'm not entirely sure that happened. I think it was literally just like poor communication where like the first guy's like, hey, do you have a, arch noble named Clarissa? And they're like, yes, we do. I don't know why you're asking that, but I'm not going to ask any questions. And then same thing with the next checkpoint, like, hey, is there a Clarissa who's supposed to marry an Ehrenfest? And they're like, yes, there is. I'm not going to ask any more questions. And then Clarissa, what's even more insane than that is the fact that Clarissa seemingly made this entire journey in like a day. I mean, even Hartman is like, yeah, this is going to take her several days to get here, but she made the journey in a day. And somebody please correct me here in the comments, but I've seen other people argue that Ehrenfest is about the size of Africa, meaning that traveling from the Duchy to Ehrenfest would mean that she needs to travel at about 150 miles per hour for 24 hours straight. Now, that is some very, very rough math, and if anybody, has better calculations, please let me know, but I'm gonna go with that and just go, what the holy mother of God above. That should not be possible. Like, I feel like the human body can't handle that much speed for that long, even with, man armor shielding her. Oh, God above, that is insane. Anyway, though, then she actually gets to Ehrenfest, gets to the border gate, and she's like, I am Myne's retainer. And all the guards are like, oh no, this is another foreign noble trying to break in. Oh God, this went so badly for us last time. The old commander was fired. I'm pretty sure Gunther punched him. Oh God, what are we gonna do? And then this leads to basically a screaming match between Gunther and Clarissa, two of the people who love Myne most in the world, with Gunther actually saying, if you claim to be her retainer, at least act in a way that won't damage her reputation. And then her responding, or maybe responding, the soldier's likely speaking the truth, though he is the rudest commoner I have ever met, because, yeah, God above, I mean, Gunther, you are insulting nobles here. They are fully within their rights to murder you if they wanted to. Oh, just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, you remember back at the end of part 4 where the Grey Priests were kidnapped, and the remaining Grey Priests couldn't actually tell Myne and Ferdinand because, you're not allowed to speak to a noble unless they speak to you first? Gunther went beyond that. Gunther went way, way beyond that. At least until Damiel showed up and basically said, yes, she is a retainer. And then Gunther and Clarissa started bonding over Damiel telling stories about Myne and how one of the scholar's primary duties is managing to take books away from her when it comes time to get her out of bed. God, I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. Seriously, at some point, I want Clarissa to find out that the soldier she was screaming at was Myne's bio father. That's gonna be absolutely freaking hilarious. Anyway, though, then, Clarissa finally comes in and she's like, Myne, I'm here to help you. And she is clearly not actually expecting a lecture. And the funniest part is Myne isn't actually even able to lecture her because she realizes, yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing I would have done. If someone told me, hey, there's a big, awesome library you can check out on the other side of the country, I probably would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have told anybody. I would have flown out. I'd have gone all night, and I've done whatever it took to get there. Thankfully, though, Hartmut's father is a much saner man and is basically able to, scold her quite well, while also saying that, actually sending her back would be a very, very bad idea, as it would shame, both Ehrenfest, the Ditter Duchy, and the border guards who let her through, even though they very much shouldn't have. And God, just his line is so perfect. For the good of all of us, however, we should disguise her arrival as a passionate quest to aid her fiancé in need, rather than a misguided rampage performed during a bit of madness. God above, I love this man, seriously. And they all wonder, hey, Clarissa, by the way, what is your luggage getting here? Because you have nothing but literally the clothes on your back. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Oh, and we also finally get to meet Myne's little brother, Nicholas, who was first introduced, I think, at the start of part 4, so like 12 or 15 volumes ago, and he is only just now being relevant, which, insane, absolutely freaking insane. Kind of reminds me of Shix's mother, who, Myne kind of sort of got her son killed, and then she didn't really do anything for a very, very long time, and then she just popped in like, ha, I'm here, I stole your Bible, I stole your priest, ha! Anyway, though, turns out Nicholas's mom, Trudy, was a hardcore Veronica follower who committed a whole bunch of crimes for her lady. And, Elvira decided to use this moment and be like, all right, you know what, I'm done with this crazy woman, and just ratted her out and got her arrested. Which is beautiful, considering, two things. First off, how above and beyond she went to protect Lamprecht's new wife, Aurelia, to the point where she didn't even need to be questioned. Absolutely great job being a mother-in-law right there. Seriously, Elvira, you did so good. So absolutely good. And, secondly, though, is the fact that unless I'm misremembering things, Elvira actually sided with Trudy when Rosemary's, Myne's fake mother's parents, caused a whole bunch of trouble. So, yeah, that's weird. That is really, really weird. Anyway, though, Nicholas, turns out he actually wanted to serve Myne. He wanted to be her guard knight, but every single person said no to that, especially his mother, who did not want him, serving someone who was raised in the temple. So I'm sure she's absolutely thrilled when she's going to find out that he is now living in the temple. Oh, that is beautiful. That is absolutely freaking beautiful. Though it turns out, living with a crazy Veronica faction fanatic, not that much fun, and he hates his mom just as much as everyone else hates his mom. Huzzah! Good for them. Also do love this, just bringing these children to become priests in the temple. It's really actually interesting because, it's emphasizing the role the temple is going to play moving forward. And also, these kids being raised in temple, or at least spending a year in the temple, praying, doing all these things, are going to get way more divine protections than, their fellow students. So they are really going to get a leg up, and, they're going to tell everyone, this is because I was raised in the temple, or I spent years in the temple, or whatever. So cool. Awesome. Love that. Also love Myne literally popping her high beast stone and then putting it back together, which, not possible. That is literally not possible. And even Ferdinand couldn't really figure out how she did it, but it really does feel like, magic in this world is whatever you want it to be, and the only limitations are one's own imagination, and nobles are very, very limited in that aspect because they, grow up in this very isolated world where they don't really do much other than noble duties. So, Myne being raised as a commoner means that she has way more inspiration and can do crazy things, and so can the students, so can the people that are going to be raised here in the temple or raised in the orphanage or whatever. So good for them. Huzzah! But anyway, though, then Myne goes to Kernberger, Judith's home, and the location of Ehrenfest Country Gate, which is, that's something else. I certainly wasn't expecting Jürgenschmidt, the entire country, to exist inside of a giant, vast, endless desert in all directions. I have some questions about that, like how? What's going on here? Why is this country in this vast desert? Is it actually endless? Is there an end to it? Are they existing on a round planet? What exactly is going on here? But anyway, though, it turns out the country gates are actually teleportation gates, which lead to other countries. Except they're all closed right now, except for Arnsbeck's, because the Zent doesn't have a magic Bible to open them. Though Ehrenfest is special because Ehrenfest used to be Ehrenreich, I think that's how it's pronounced, and turns out they kind of tried to, pull off a little coup against the Zent, and they were punished very, very badly for it. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Oh, and speaking of Kernberger, the Gabe's son Alexis, who serves Wilfried, came back and just spent an entire epilogue complaining about how dumb, insane, and just ridiculous Wilfried is being about literally everything. Which, makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Oh god, this poor man, seriously. And his father gives him a good talking to, basically tell him, okay, you need to either provide proof to, Sylvester that he is a fully and completely incompetent lord, or you need to serve him wholeheartedly until the end. So, and that basically inspires him to go back and become a true retainer and do his best to, help fix Wilfried, figure out who exactly it is who is poisoning him now that Oswald is gone. Big surprise, it is Bartels, the person that his own fiancé referred to as a bully. Was Muriel his fiancé? I think she was, or they were supposed to be fiancés. I can't remember exactly, but she referred to him as bully, and he's clearly using his position as a name sworn to get a lot of trust and faith from Wilfried, even though it's really not being earned right now. That's interesting. I mean, Myne's retainers, her name sworn, are all people who she has, genuinely and absolutely earned the trust of because she saved their lives. She, protected them. She gave them a home. They are so grateful to her. Whereas Bartold, at least, he's loyal to Veronica, but that's basically about it. He only really sees, as far as I can tell, he only really sees Wilfried as Veronica's grandson, as the one raised by her. So of course he wants, Wilfried to embody Veronica's philosophy. Concerning. Very, very concerning. I mean, like I said, there's a very good chance Wilfried's gonna end up turning to the dark side. Mwah. That'd be interesting. And last thing I want to mention in this video is how much Myne has grown, because that was something that was brought up again and again and again this volume. When she was first, putting on clothes, you're like, oh, we need to order you new clothes because now they're above your shin. You've clearly grown. And she was ecstatic at that. And then Otto even said it later on, like, oh, clearly we need to order you new clothes because it's so obvious you've grown. God, I love you, Otto. Like, seriously, I absolutely freaking love you. I'm not sure if you're, savvy enough to actually say that because it would make her happy, or if you've genuinely noticed her growth. You are a little bit dense, but you also are a merchant, so both are very possible. Then when she did the spring prayer, she was only needed to rest for 2 days instead of 3, and was only bedridden 3 times during it, which is apparently an improvement. All of this is because, Myne managed to melt the mana clumps inside of her and is now stronger, healthier, and finally freaking growing. So hopefully, Melchior doesn't end up taller than her. Hopefully. And then, when Myne went to the guard gate to pick up Clarissa, Gunther saw her and was like, wow, she's grown, she's so mature, she's so majestic, she's become a true noble. While Thule and Luz see the magic charms that Myne made for them is like, are these things actually going to work? Because, Myne is the one who made them, and this is Myne we're talking about. She's always been, a bit clumsy, a bit accident prone, a bit of a klutz, all that, but they don't know that Myne, has grown so freaking much. She has come first in her class every year at the Royal Academy. She's made so much. She's done so much. She's connected with royals and nobles and has played dither against the strongest duchy in the country on 3 separate occasions and won every single match. Seriously, Myne is a goddamn beast. And I think most importantly is the fact that Myne actually gave up her reading time to make these charms, to make sure her family was safe, something that even surprised her. Myne is growing, and she's learning to put things above her reading time, like making sure that her family and friends are safe and well taken care of. So good for you, Myne. I'm very excited to see how that growth continues in Part 5, Volume 5. Which I guess is going to be Myne going back to the academy. Didn't she say that she needs to go there for the Starbind ceremony for Siggy and his wife, as well as, I think going into the archives? I think that was mentioned. I can't remember. I'm very excited to cover that when it comes out in a couple weeks. Though first, I will be covering Short Story Collection Volume 1. I've had this for a while, a couple weeks now. I was supposed to read it when I went on vacation, but that vacation didn't happen. And then things got really, really rough, so I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to start reading it once I've, finished editing and uploading this video. Very excited for that. Just a quick skim, it seems like it covers everything from Part 1 to Part 3, with a real focus on Feline, which I'm very excited about. But anyway, though, let me think down below. What do you think of this volume? What do you think of Myne's growth? Do you think that Wilfried is being set up to be the next big bad villain? And if not, how exactly do they stop this man whose pride has been just so horribly, horribly broken? I mean, it's clear that he's, relying on Veronica's teachings and all that to blame others for his own inadequacies, but, seriously, how do you overcome that? It feels like something Wilfried kind of needs to do on his own, but that's really unlikely to happen while, Barthold is serving him, whispering poison in his ear. Please let me think about all this down below, and until next time, peace!